What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 72 of the Hoop Venue podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend Sean. I know we said this was going to be our All-Stars episode where we select our All-Star teams and weed out the differences between the benches in the East and the West, but this morning some news dropped from Shams' report. It's pretty much official. After 13 seasons with the Bucks, it seems like Giannis's time in Milwaukee is coming to an end. It's not 100% confirmed, and as things currently stand, I don't think Giannis has officially, publicly at least, requested a trade. But the report essentially said that Milwaukee as a franchise is now finally willing to listen to aggressive deals on Giannis, and they're not shutting the door on that possibility. And it's an interesting situation because Giannis kind of holds the leverage. If I'm not wrong, he's an unrestricted free agent in 2027. And Milwaukee's kind of been holding out on this Giannis era for a few years now, where we've heard the trade rumors even going back to like 2023, where it was always Giannis is going to Miami and all this stuff. And Shams has even reported in the past about the Giannis stuff quite a bit. So now he comes out with this. The official report said two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home at the February 5th NBA trade deadline or in the offseason, as several rival teams make aggressive offers to the Milwaukee Bucks for him, and the franchise is starting to listen. So, Sean, what's your initial reaction to that in terms of just like what that means for Giannis, what it means for the Bucks, and what it means for the NBA as a whole?
For Giannis and the Bucks, I saw a great, and I'm trying to remember who said it. I almost want to say it was Kenny Beecham, Numbers on the Board, or it was some other content creator. So if somebody in the comments know which content creator it is, please let me know if I'm wrong. But basically the gist of their statement was like, they hate how like, or they don't understand how like the Bucks and Giannis like both trying to not be the bad guy in the situation. Yeah. Where, you know what I'm talking about now? Yeah. Where it's like, hey, we don't want to be the team that trades you, and like, no, it wasn't. I know who it is now. It's Bryce Simon and Sam Vecini, Game Theory podcast. There we go. So shout out to my guy Bryce. He was like, dude, Milwaukee has done they have at least tried. They've had some bumps in the road. They've had some miscalculations. They've not consistently built the best team around Giannis, but I think they've tried to build around Giannis and at least give them a fair shot to contend in the East, to contend for a title. And then Giannis, I think, has probably handled, I'm not going to say he's handled this better than every superstar, because I think the annoying part about Giannis in this situation is, like, dude, nobody would have blamed you 3 years ago for wanting out. But, like, the little, like, passive comments that we've had over the past year, that's annoying. And then it's the passive comments and then immediately flipping it and acting like everybody's asinine for questioning if you want to stay in Milwaukee. Like, this literally happened like 3 weeks ago, where he has passive aggressive comment about Milwaukee and their hopes to win a title this season. And then somebody tries to put two and two together, like, hey, you seem pretty unhappy here. He's like, well, why would I ever be unhappy here? I love it here in Milwaukee. Yeah. And no, the F you don't. Very, very clearly. So the comparison I used on Twitter was essentially, this is, this might go off the rails, so I apologize. 5 minutes into the pod. But the analogy I used on Twitter, at Sean_DAVI, was that Giannis and the Bucks are the two-parent household that is very clearly fractured. They're literally just staying in a relationship and not getting a divorce simply so they can keep the family together. But all it's doing is causing more toxicity, making the situation worse, instead of just splitting. Like, okay, you guys had a great 10-year marriage. Great job. 3 years ago, like year 11, it was on the rocks. You went to some relationship counseling or whatever. You had a good therapist temporarily, which was Dame. And then, the therapist had enough, and they blow their Achilles out. Blow their Achilles out. And,
is that what happens in relationship therapy? The Achilles of the therapist is at risk. Is that how it goes? Dude, that was great. That was a great analogy. I love it.
Yeah, there we go. But, I mean, the point is, I think you're just at the natural conclusion of the Giannis and Milwaukee relationship now, where it is mutually beneficial for both parties to just separate. one, Giannis gets a fresh start, a new team to try to build around and go contend for a championship as early as this season if something could get done by the trade deadline. And then for Milwaukee, honestly, you could just give them a direction. Like, okay, the current state, okay, you are trying to compete because you have the third best player at worst on the planet in Giannis. But, like, in reality, Milwaukee is very far away from contending, even in the East right now. Like, fully healthy. They're not better than Detroit, Boston, and Boston's not fully healthy, obviously. They're not a top 6 team. I'm not going to run down all the teams in the East. So, okay, cool. Even if it means just being bad for a year. One of my biggest pet peeves in sports in general is where a team is so, like, hell-bent on being mediocre to sell tickets or to be average that they set their franchise fee even further back instead of being bad that 1 or 2 years. And that's all it would take, I think. Like, Milwaukee just going to be bad for a year or two. And then you can kind of start to rebuild this. You already have some solid people. Like, Ryan Rollins, I like him as a building block going forward. Yeah. Like, you're going to get assets back for Giannis. So I think we are just naturally at the conclusion that, hey, we've had a great run. The honeymoon was great. We had 2 kids. You had 2. Let me stop with the comparisons now. But it was a great run. You guys made history together, but now it's time to see other people.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with everything you said. And just to add to your point a little bit about like them having a great run, I think there's this kind of idea that from an organizational standpoint, the Bucks failed Giannis. And I think it gets overlooked, like how quickly they built a championship team around Giannis. Like, he was 24 years old when he won his first MVP, I'm pretty sure. And by that point, the Bucks were already ready to win a championship. Like, that 2019 team was filthy. And the unfortunate reality of building around someone like Giannis at that young of an age is that in order to make it work and to get the types of players that they needed around Giannis to win a championship, which they did in 2021, it took adding aging veterans, it took getting rid of young assets, it took all these moves on the margins, right? That you get to a point where you kind of just run out of moves, you run out of assets, right? Like, they don't really have the picks, they don't have the young players to go out and improve the roster on the margins in a bunch of major ways like they need to. Like, they're not a good offensive rebounding team, they're not a good defensive team anywhere, they're not a good transition team. What they've done is they've prioritized putting shooters around Giannis. And so it's like when Giannis is on the court, they're not a terrible team. Like, this year even, they're like plus 6.5 net rating with Giannis on the court, 122.8 offensive rating with Giannis on the court, excluding garbage time, which is 91st percentile. So it's like, you've done that part right, but it's like, in order to put the team around Giannis that you need to put around him to actually compete for a championship where you have defensive versatility, you have capable off-the-catch decision makers and ball handlers, you have a bunch of shooters, you have rebounders, and a true 5 to put next to him. You just have to have assets to make those moves, which they do not have anymore. Like, you go out and trade for Drew Holiday, you get this, like, well, how long did they have Drew Holiday? 4 years? 3 years? You get
4,
a 3-year, I think it was 3. I think it was 2021, 22, and 23, and then 24 he's with Boston, they win the championship. You get a 3-year run from Drew Holiday where he's an incredible basketball player. You get the entirety of Chris Middleton's prime with Giannis. You go out and grab Brook Lopez in the 2018 offseason, which turns out to be a championship-winning move, adding him as like this 3-and-D prototype big for the new era. They did it right. And it's just like at a certain point, you run out of moves you can make. Like, they held on to Middleton so long, they tried to battle the injuries and stuff, and then you have to flip him for someone like Kyle Kuzma for a contract standpoint. Bobby Portis, like, there's not much you can do with that, but he played an integral role in your 2021 championship. So you kind of have to keep him around. He's your veteran. So I don't think they failed him from an organizational standpoint. They did what they had to do early on in the 2018-2019 transitional years as Giannis took that MVP type of leap. They remained in championship contention from 2019 to 2023. That's a nice 5-year window. And like you said, now they're kind of just marking time with Giannis as like the franchise GOAT. You don't want to push him away, but you also like can't really build a team around him anymore unless you just have some crazy trade or draft luck.
Yeah.
Or major free agents like, I want to go to Milwaukee. So now you end up in this weird crossroads where Giannis is still clearly playing at a peak level, but the Bucks have no direction whatsoever to build that championship team around Giannis. So it becomes, what do you prioritize if you're Giannis or if you're the Bucks franchise? If you're the franchise, do you prioritize keeping the franchise goat around, keeping the kids happy as you described it? Or do you prioritize, all right, let's go into a rebuilding period and let's send Giannis wherever he wants to go? And then if you're Giannis, do I want to stay with Milwaukee because I've been here my entire career? Or do you want to squeeze these back like 5 years of your prime or whatever he has left? Who knows? Because this is already year 13 for him, but he's still, like I said, playing at a peak level. Do you prioritize the last, and also injury prone, so like, do you prioritize your last few years of good health maybe, trying to compete for a championship? And it seems like they're both starting to move in that direction where the Bucks are like, maybe Giannis is going to leave in 2027, so let's try and recoup the assets we can for him now. And then Giannis is like, kind of go with the flow. Like, yeah, I'm fine in Milwaukee, but also I want to win a championship. And, yeah, who knows? I think the cool part about all of this is, like, who knows what to expect? I actually have no idea what's about to happen. Like, let me ask you just straight up, do you think Giannis is going to be traded at the deadline, or do you think this, like, rolls into the summer?
I think this is going to roll to the summer. Because I think they're just going to milk everything here. And now, unfortunately for the trade market, because I do think to a certain extent everybody's kind of waiting to see if it's legit and if they can like actually get their hands on the Giannis pie. It's frustrating though, man. Like, I think there would be nothing wrong necessarily with Giannis staying around, being the franchise GOAT and stuff like that, but you would just have to have an honest realignment, like conversation on what your goals are, both as a franchise and as the player. And as much as I'm sure that Giannis would love to spend his entire career in Milwaukee, as much as Milwaukee, I'm sure, would love to have Giannis around, for a 20-plus year-long career, retires a Buck, one-and-done team. I don't think that they want those things over other things. Like, I think Giannis, at this point of his career, wants to compete for a championship and wants to be in a spot that, like, their championship hosts to a certain extent maybe aren't hell-bent tied to him. And to your point, like, he's also, like, gone to the point over the past, I said this last year even, like, Giannis over the past post-title year, basically, has had a nagging injury, it felt like, every single year. The following year, they lose in the second round to Boston. I think that's the next year. Lose to Boston in the second round. Why? Because Giannis is hurt. And granted, everybody from Milwaukee was hurt. Middleton was hurt. I think Drew was also hurt.
I do, not to cut you off, but I do wonder how differently everything pans
if Middleton doesn't get hurt.
If Middleton doesn't get hurt. Like, they probably beat the Celtics.
Yeah.
And then I would imagine they cruise through the Heat. Like, not that the Heat were an easy beat, but, like, I think the Bucks had their number.
Yeah. Because this is your boss that beat Miami to go to the finals.
Right. And then you get, like, a Bucks and Warriors final series to potentially go back-to-back.
Yeah.
A lot changes if Middleton doesn't get hurt. Honestly, I don't even want to make it sound like it could have been very well possible. Like, I feel like as NBA fans, we all do this thing where, like, if they're fully healthy, that just changes everything. It's very possible that Middleton healthy, the Celtics still beat them. Like, that's still a very real possibility. And then that also changes things in a major way, because maybe they're like, okay, our team isn't good enough, and then they get off of Middleton or Drew Holiday a year earlier. Or Brook Lopez years earlier. That's what makes things interesting. Like, everything kind of fell apart for them. Sorry, I cut you off, though.
No, I was just going to say, even though I was kind of giving them a little bit of bail for the Middleton injury in 22, they were also the 1 seed and got walked down by Jimmy Butler. That ultimately led to Mike Budenholzer's firing. So, I think they've just never been able to respond post that season. And it's tough, but yeah, again, I think the partnerships needs to come to an end while we're still grateful for our time with each other before things really go left and we start getting diss tracks. I'm sure Giannis and Dame still have a good connection, good relationship. Giannis can hop on a rap song and drop some bars shading the Bucks franchise. No, all seriousness, yeah, I think get this over with. I would love for this to happen at the deadline so we have something to talk about instead of dragging this out until the summer and we're playing Giannis watch all summer. I think that's where I'm at. I do think the most likely outcome is they wait till the summer.
I agree. I think this will drag out into the summer. But what's interesting, like I kind of just like gassed up the Bucks franchise for building a championship team around Giannis to some extent. Like they did a very good job during that era of getting the pieces and getting the depth and getting the type of players you want around Giannis. But I will say, with all of these like lifetime franchise players, I guess we'll call them, there is like some level of precedent. Like it really weeds out the great organizations from the organizations that struggle. Because Giannis is here 13 years, and he is 31 years old. Tim Duncan in 2008 was about 32 years old, I believe, and like that's year 11 for him with San Antonio. And they were able to completely retool that thing, remain a contender for years after that, and then put together maybe the best iteration of the Tim Duncan era in 2013 and 2014. Which would be 6 years. So that would be like the Bucks retooling everything and then having a like peak Bucks team in 2030 or 2032. Like we're not even thinking about that as a possibility at all. Or like Dirk Nowitzki with the Mavs. That wasn't year like 12 or 13 until they won their first championship in 2011, and Dirk again was like 32 years old at that time. But, like, that was after years and years and years of winning 60 games and coming up short. That level of continuity requires, like, perfect organizational decision-making. Like, making these moves in the margins to make you a contender in the meantime, going out and grabbing all of the right archetypes of players to surround your superstar, but then also doing it without sacrificing your future. And that's where the Bucks kind of went wrong. They sacrificed all of their assets and put all of their eggs in that 1 5-year window, and then they got a championship out of it, so you can't be mad about it. But there is, like, it's not the same thing as, like, the Bucks are back every single year, like you saw with the Mavs or the Spurs or the Lakers with Kobe, for example. It's a lot more like the Timberwolves with KG, although they did a way better job during those peak years. It'd be like Kevin Garnett had basically half of a year of a healthy team in 2004. They went to the Western Conference Finals, and then Sam Cassell, the second best player, didn't even play in the Western Conference Finals. But like every other year surrounding that, like they had a scandal that they lost all of their draft picks. By 2007, that roster was completely deserted, and it's kind of a similar thing happening where Kevin Garnett never actually publicly requested a trade from Minnesota. He always maintained, like, I want to stick with, he used to call it soda. He's like, I want to stick with soda. I'm not going anywhere. But then he waived his no trade clause. And that was kind of like the, maybe KG's available. And then you get, like, the massive Celtics trade. And then they go out and win a championship year one. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens with Giannis, where it's like we wait till the summer and he never publicly requests a trade, but it's more so like a silent, like, everyone knows. And then there's just like, it's just the top bid on a contender. What I'm interested to find out is whether the Bucks prioritize the best possible, and this is assuming Giannis actually gets traded. Like, there's still a very real scenario where Giannis re-signs in Milwaukee for like a 5-year deal, and it's like nothing happened. This was a nothing burger. But like in the scenario that Giannis does get traded, I think it'll be really interesting to see if they prioritize the best possible offer, or if they're like, Giannis, you gave us so much history, like you're our franchise GOAT. We're gonna try and get you where you want to go, or we're gonna try and get you somewhere that could give you a championship. Because like, what if a team like the Wizards is willing to just throw the house at Giannis, but like Giannis isn't going to be in a position to compete and he doesn't want to go to DC. What would that look like from an organizational standpoint? Would the Bucks be like, no, that's the best possible offer, that's where you're going? Or would it be something like Harden in Houston, where he was like, I want to go to Brooklyn, so maybe you take a little bit of a lesser deal to get him where he wants to go?
Yeah. One spot, because reportedly the 4 teams that are most likely suitors, I think was the wording, was what, Golden State, Minnesota, Miami, New York. I believe that's accurate.
Yeah, I think so. Although Minnesota makes no sense to me at all. I don't understand why that would be. That soda. Feels like what even? Yeah, soda. I could see the other 3 teams. The other 3 teams make more sense. Like you could make
Golden State?
a move on the margin.
Did I say Golden State?
You did say Golden State. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like, I think that's what makes things super interesting because it's like, what does the package for Giannis look like? I tried to actually go back and historically dive into like which types of players were in a similar kind of boat to where Giannis is right now, where it's like you're 31 years old, you are a superstar, you're like a top. We both agree that Giannis is a top 3 player in the world still. At worst, probably 3 for me, but like if you want to say 4 or 5, okay, I won't get mad at you. I think he's solidified in the top 3 still. I'd even argue he's at his peak right now offensively. Like he's casually having one of the greatest scoring seasons of all time. He's averaging 36.5 points per 75 on plus 10% relative true shooting. Never been done before. Never even, for reference, that's the same volume that Harden hit in 2019 on a per possession basis. So we're talking about 2019 James Harden type of scoring rate, but with like OKC Kevin Durant efficiency. This is something that just has not happened before. Giannis is currently having one of the greatest scoring seasons of all time. And I'd still say he's a very strong defender. We've talked about this a lot. He's not a defensive player of the year candidate anymore, but still does a lot of things well. Still a big time rim protector, big time presence and help, can be your primary defensive rebounder. All this stuff. We agree he's a top 3 player. And I was wondering, like, how often does a player of this caliber become publicly available for a trade? So I went back to 2000. That was where I cut it off. And if we're very loose with the definition of what we consider a top 3 player, well, like just any type of top 3 candidate or even top 5 candidate, I was able to come up with like 7 names. So you've got Tracy McGrady in 2004, publicly requests a trade from the Magic. He was 25 years old. You've got Shaquille O'Neal in 2004, who was 32 years old. So that's like the age range of Giannis that we're talking about, but it was clear that Shaq was starting to trend downwards. Like he was still an elite big, but he wasn't prime Shaq like we're seeing with Giannis. You get Chris Paul in 2011, 26 years old. Also, lots of injury stuff going on there. So Chris Paul wasn't like it. It wasn't surefire that Chris Paul would be the Chris Paul that was an MVP candidate with the Hornets. Same thing with Dwight Howard in 2012. He requests a trade from the Magic. He was 26 years old, but he was just coming off of a back injury. And as we know, he was never the same after getting traded to the Lakers. Kawhi Leonard in 2018. Again, injury stuff, but also 26 years old. Anthony Davis in 2019. 25 years old. In the, like, about to enter his peak. Had his best season ever a year after getting traded. The only one that's comparable to Giannis that I was able to find is James Harden in 2020. He was 31 years old, coming off of arguably his best season. And there's a lot of history with the franchise. It's a similar thing where it's like Houston probably wanted to get Harden where he wanted to go, similar to what we might see with Milwaukee and Giannis. And the trade package wasn't that big for Harden in particular. Like it was a big 4-team deal, but the haul for Houston was salary-filled players. It was Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, and Rodions Kurucs. So not really big names there. I mean, Oladipo's a big name, but we all know that was injured Oladipo. It's just salary. But you get 3 unprotected firsts, another first from Milwaukee, and 4 pick swaps. So essentially, salary, 4 first-round picks, and 4 pick swaps. The other aspect of that is that Harden was an Iron Man. Harden at that point had basically never been injured before. So that was the haul for a prime James Harden who was never injured. So I wonder, like, is Giannis going to have a bigger haul because he's a two-way player and because he's a champion? Is he going to have a smaller haul because he's injury prone? Or is he going to have the same type of haul because Milwaukee's going to prioritize getting him to a destination he wants? Because if it's a similar haul to James Harden, pretty much any team in the league can make an offer for Giannis. And that's what's really interesting to me. Going back to what we said about preferred destinations, like Miami can easily make a bigger offer than that. Golden State can easily make a bigger offer than that. Same with Toronto, I've heard, New York, even Minnesota, which I'm not a huge fan of. So, yeah, I guess my question to you would be, if it is the type of haul that pretty much any team can make a move for, what are some of the teams that are on your radar in terms of, like, that would make sense to make a Giannis trade?
The 2 teams that have been outwardly mentioned that make the most sense to me would be Miami and Toronto. The one team that I don't think has been as outwardly stated, but I know you've brought up the idea, and I love the idea. I love the fit. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix. That fit.
Phoenix is amazing. Let's wait on Phoenix because I've got a whole spiel on Phoenix. Sell me on Miami and Toronto. Is that the two teams you mentioned?
Yeah, Miami and Toronto. Am I selling you on the fit or am I selling you on like the package?
Sell me on the fit. We could talk about package later. I don't even know. Like I said, this is such a historic anomaly. I don't even think we can anticipate a package,
Fair.
unless it's a bidding war. So let's just keep this about basketball fit for now. I see the vision with Miami. I'm not 100% sold on Toronto.
Well, I'll start with Miami. I think the fit is one that is the system that I can see from a basketball lens. Giannis probably thriving in the most, where it's not a number one, not a ball screen centric system. Thank the heavens for like Giannis. We talked about this a lot off air and even on camera as well, specifically regarding not Luka, the Dame and Giannis fit not really panning out well. It's because Giannis just isn't this uber effective screen and roll big. That's just not his game. We've known that now for about 13 years. So, quick side rant. Why the hell would he make sense for the most spread pick and roll centric player in the past 2 decades or so? Makes
NBA
absolutely
history.
no sense.
NBA history, yeah.
Sure. Whereas in Miami, you're going to this system with all this movement away from the ball. Their primary players, okay, let's assume that in this weird scenario that they're able to keep Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. I think Bam will be able to stay for sure. Tyler Hero would, salary-wise, at least be the most likely guy to get the boot. Although, they could maybe put some stuff together with Wiggs and some other things.
Yeah.
But, okay, cool. Let's just say you're able to keep Hero and Bam, right? Tyler Hero, at least this year, he's kind of adjusted to the fact that they're not running ball screens. He's not this. Now, he's still going to be their primary ball screen guy. And I'm not saying you're never going to run pick and roll. But, okay, Tyler Hero could score off the ball. He's a spot-up threat. He's an off-screen guy. He could go DHO game with Tyler Hero. Bam, defense with Bam and Giannis on the back line is terrifying. So, there's your argument in a nutshell right there. I think the offensive fit with Giannis and Bam could definitely be a little clunky. But, okay, let's also play in this imaginary land where we're happy and we get everything we want. Giannis and Khalil Ware on offense would kick ass. Excuse my language, but that would be awesome, I think. Khalil Ware as the floor spacing 5-man. There's your, Brook Lopez Giannis thing. Offensively, at least, we're floor spacing 5 that can also finish around the basket. That's fine and, has tools defensively. And then you have Bam as the other guy that is kick-ass defense, gonna do everything you want for the flow of the offense in general, also good decision maker. So, Miami is just an attractable destination long-term too. Okay, let's say Giannis has a 5-year window being a top 10 to 20 player, and let's keep the window kind of, let's keep it open, all right? I don't want to put the expectation on Giannis that 30, how old is he, 32? How old is Giannis?
31. He just turned 31.
Okay, so I don't want to put the expectation that 36-year-old Giannis is a top 3 player still. I'm gonna be fair. But okay, cool. For the next 5 years, deep into the next contract. Also, another reason why the fit makes sense because Miami feels like a spot that can actually retain Giannis, as opposed to him going to a Washington or a Brooklyn, even, right? That now you have a legitimate sales pitch for the next guy or the group of role players to build this team around going forward to kind of conclude Giannis's prime. So Miami makes the most sense in my opinion out of any team. From a fit, on-court fit, a business fit if you want to call it that. And then Toronto, I'm kind of just buying into the idea of, we're going to have all the crazy wing athletes that Scottie and Giannis, okay, the offensive fit is probably going to be clunky, but dude, if it's Scottie, Giannis, and CMB, I don't care who else you have. Let's just start there. Let's get shooters. Let's get guys that can, initiate offense, because that'll probably be IQ and BI. Okay. Yeah. You need some guard play in there desperately. I don't know. I just like the fit. I like the idea, especially defensively for Toronto. They just be a pain to play. They wouldn't contend right away. Miami would be the closest, I think, to contending and making noise this year. Toronto would very clearly need an offseason to kind of recalibrate and, figure out what they want to do from a roster standpoint. But Scotty and Giannis defensively on the back end. Scotty's like low key getting depoy buzz right now. I don't think he's gonna win it at all, but he's been a freak on that end of the floor. CMB as your big. They haven't even had Jakob Poeltl at all this year. So maybe not the most convincing pitch on Toronto, but freakazoids defensively. You have your creator in Giannis. You have enough shooting in theory, and let's get the offseason going. Let's build around Giannis.
That makes sense. Let me tell you, like, let me explain to you what my hang up with Giannis in general is, and like how it pertains to Toronto in particular. So, I feel like we've gotten to a point where a lot of times when stars become available for trade, a lot of people default to like what could be the most talented team possible, and it's like, yeah, if you put Giannis on the Lakers next to Luka, that's a lot of freaking talent. But like obviously there's the aspect of fit, right? And it's not always as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. In basketball, 1 + 1 can equal 3, which would be Steph and Draymond. Actually, 1 + 1 = 9 in that particular construct because they're the most synergistic duo we've ever seen. But like 1 + 1 can also equal 0.3 if the fit is that bad. And I feel like as a collective, we've started to come around on the idea of like, okay, sometimes stacking talent isn't just the best way to win. And I feel like what originally skewed the perspective in the wrong direction was the Warriors adding KD as a seamless fit and being like, okay, if we just stack all these all-stars, we're unbeatable. Well, that was the fact that Steph, Clay, and Draymond were already a flawless fit, and Kevin Durant was an even more flawless fit with all of them. So it was like basketball heaven. That was the perfect team construction. And then you get into instances where you try to put 2 ball handlers together, or 2 mid-range scorers together in the case of Booker and KD. And it's like maybe the diminishing returns aren't worth the talent upgrade always, and those added extra 2 or 3 wings on the depth, or depth pieces on the wing, I should have said. That made no sense. You get what I'm saying, though. Like, it's not always as simple as stacking talent. But also, I think what gets overlooked isn't just like the skill set fit, it's also the space you occupy on the court. And Giannis is a very like particular player in that if you have him on your team, he's going to occupy that space in the middle of the court, like top of the key, elbow area. That's where he's going to do a lot of his damage. So if you have a player who already likes to occupy in the middle of the court and is a big part of your offense, adding Giannis does nothing but just bring unnecessary redundancy. And the 3 teams that come to mind are Joel Embiid with the Sixers. Fit would make no sense. Şengün with the Rockets, fit would make no sense. And then like Derek Queen with the Pelicans, although you don't turn down Giannis because of Derek Queen, regardless of like how promising Derek Queen looks as a rookie. But those are the types of bigs you can't fit with Giannis because when Giannis, and it's a similar thing with Shea. I've heard a lot of people talk about how the Thunder can hypothetically build the best trade for Giannis. Yes, 1,000,000% I agree. But like Shea and Giannis occupy the same space on the court. So what does it look like when you're closing a playoff game and one of them is playing your turn, my turn offense, and it's going to end up being Giannis because Shea is going to be handling the ball down the stretch of games? It just wouldn't make much sense. So when you talk about the space Giannis occupies on the court, that's where you have to start. And when I look at Toronto in particular, I feel like it's a little bit clunky because I feel like that's the space Scotty Barnes typically occupies. And then it's like, what does it look like with your 5-man? Because if it is CMB, he's not really a floor spacer. So, like, you have to go to a lot more lineups with Sandro Mamukelashvili or, like, Scotty, Giannis, and another non-shooter, and then you basically are just, like, sacrificing three-point shooting. And I think that's where I get the clunkiness from with Toronto. Although I do agree, like, the length, size, and athleticism on defense would be crazy. Toronto's already a top 5 defense, I'm pretty sure. And if you can add Giannis without getting rid of any of your defensive pieces, you'd just be a juggernaut. But like same thing with Miami. I think they can add him to their top 5 defense, be a defensive juggernaut. But the offensive fit makes a lot more sense because Bam no longer occupies that space in the middle of the court with the new wheel offense they've been running. Bam's actually been a volume 3-point shooter now. So you get some spacing effect from that. But then also I just think that with the way they don't clog space with screens, the type of offense they run, and the amount of volume 3-point shooters they have across the board, that's the basketball fit that makes the most sense out of the preferred destinations. And that's not to say, like, I'm saying you add Giannis to your team and you just have to spam middle of the floor isolations for Giannis. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's where he's at his best. That's where he has the most value. That's where he can see the entire floor, pick apart with drive and kick and all that stuff, and free up shooters. But then there's also the secondary stuff. Like you talked about getting into dribble handoff action. That starts from the middle of the floor, seeing everything, getting the defense moving laterally. And then he is a dynamic pick and roll threat because yes, you don't want him setting 50 ball screens a game, but like when you can just like keep the defense honest with a quick dribble handoff and roll, he's one of the best play finishers in the game. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. Monster cutter and finisher, monster transition presence. So there is still off-ball value there. It's just that when you're in the half court, the best possible way to get the most value out of Giannis is to run things through him in the middle of the floor. So when I look at best possible trade destinations for Giannis, the first thing I'm looking for is, do you have someone that occupies that space in the court, or do you have someone who's so ball dominant or such a rigid offensive structure that you can't afford to give him those touches as your primary source of offense?
So what will be your top 3 Giannis fits?
I don't know if I have a concrete top 3. I've got like a list of teams that make a lot of sense to me, and then I've also got some teams that I'm like, I'm not 100% sure about. So let me
wait, before you go. Give me the list of teams that you think make sense, and I'll be the bad guy in rank.
Okay, before I start naming teams, I want to dispel one more Giannis myth that I heard on Twitter today plenty of times. Giannis does not have to play with a shooting big. I understand why people think that, because he's such a downhill heavy player and because you don't want to have 2 non-shooters on the court, ideally. But if you put an athletic big in the dunker spot, I promise Giannis's game is no different from if that guy was a shooter in the corner. If anything, downhill pressure creates dump off and offensive rebounding opportunities for the big man, and it makes it a lot harder to bring help. We actually just spent a lot of time last episode talking about the value of having a big in the dunker spot with the Hornets and Moussa Diabate. Obviously the other 3 guys have to be shooters then.
I was gonna say, if you have the third non-shooter on the floor, then it becomes somewhat problematic. Yeah.
Right, but like for example, and we'll get into some teams where this applies, but like the Spurs, for example, if you put Wemby in the slot, Giannis in the middle of the floor, and Stephon Castle in the dunker spot, your offense is going to be good. It's not a problem that Castle isn't a shooting threat. Okay, I'm going to name some teams that I just have written down, and we'll talk about why I don't know they're a great fit or whatnot. First team is the Knicks. You already brought them up because they're a name that's been in the trade talks a lot. And I also saw a report, I don't know if this was a confirmed report, but it said Giannis's preferred destinations were the Knicks, Heat, and Raptors. Again, I actually have no idea if that was even a real report. I just saw it a few different times from a few different sources, a few different aggregators, we'll call them, on Twitter. But the Knicks were a team I heard a lot. And obviously it'd be replacing Cat, because that's really the only way to make it work from a contract standpoint. Talk to me about the Knicks fit.
I think that would just be the most your turn, my turn in the league.
That's what I wonder, because I do think ideally a lineup of Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG, Giannis, and Mitchell Robinson sounds like it checks every single box. You've got tons of defensive versatility, tons of size, monster rebounding, tons of passing, volume 3-point shooting from 1, 2, and 3. And then everyone in that lineup can catch the ball and make a decision, of course, except for Mitchell Robinson, who's going to just be operating in the dunker, screening, fighting for offensive rebounding, positioning, and all that good stuff. Yeah, the only hang-up for me is what does Brunson and Giannis look like on the court together? And that's kind of, I believe, what you were getting at with the your turn, my turn stuff. Because they don't occupy the exact same space on the court, but they do from a standpoint of like Brunson
how they
wants
want to score.
Right, how they want to score. Brunson wants to get to those spots inside the arc. If you have Giannis and Mitchell Robinson on the court, what does that look like spacing-wise?
Especially because, also, like you said, Brunson wants to occupy the same space as Giannis. Right. And then you already have Mitchell Robinson on the floor. It's turning Mikal Bridges now to a 13 3-point attempt per 75 possessions type of guy now.
And that's what's weird. But what's weird about it, like, the reason I'm not 100% like on the other side of like this doesn't work at all is because Brunson is a proven off-ball player. He can play off-ball. He's a very good shooter, quick decision maker. And it's like, if there were specific lineups where you have Giannis and Robinson on the court and you lean more into like Giannis ball, or even like just straight lateral action ball where Giannis is basically just like this hub in the middle of the floor, and then Mitchell Robinson's just operating the dunker spot. I could see it working that way. And then you close a lot of games with Giannis at the 5. And then he becomes like your play finisher, dunker spot type of guy, and you run a lot of Brunson ISO or Brunson Giannis two-man stuff. There are ways to make it work. I just think it would have to be like perfect from a schematic standpoint to work on offense at a play in like against a great playoff defense. The selling point though would be, my goodness, talk about building the perfect defense around Brunson.
Yeah.
Mikhail, OG, Deuce McBride, Giannis, Mitchell Robinson.
You still have, wow. For additional bench scoring and playmaking, you have Tyler Kolek.
Yeah.
We're cooking with fish grease for New York. Yeah, I think that's easily the sales pitch, like you said. The biggest problem with Brunson and Cat as a duo is that you cannot, in a playoff series, trying to make a run for a title, and we saw this on numerous occasions, especially in the Pacers series last year, you're going to have to make the decision to keep one of them off the floor because they're both just limited defensive players, and teams are going to go at them. Indiana literally put those two guys in every single action down the stretch to close out games in those series. Where now, okay, cool, Brunson's still a limited defender, but Brunson has at least some team defense attributes where now you can, the Knicks could legitimately be like a top 8 defense with that group. And then you figure out I think, is it crazy to say that the Knicks with Giannis, like if you did this a swap and whatever picks or whatever it takes to get it done, but for the most part, it's clean of a like 1-for-1 swap as possible. The Knicks have the highest ceiling out of any team that could get Giannis.
Probably, yeah. Actually, okay. I'm gonna throw another team at you that just from a ceiling perspective that I'm also not 100% sold on. You brought them up, the Warriors. From a ceiling perspective, like Steph and Giannis as a duo with that motion offense sounds like it could perfect basketball.
I just envision it now, like the Warriors going, dude, can you imagine to close out games in the playoffs, the Warriors spam Giannis and Steph inverted pick and roll?
Yeah, I don't know how you guard that. I don't even think there's a cut. Like, what would be, if you were coaching against that, what would be your initial instinct, like, from a defensive standpoint? Switch? But what's funny is, like, they'll eliminate the switch by having Steph screen his own man, knowing that Giannis is going to get downhill, regardless.
Yeah. You'll just have Steph screen your own man. Maybe you can't even show. That's the easiest, you're cooked. You're cooked, best.
But here, I was going to say, the problem with that is, like, what if you just send the house after that? Like, what? My problem with the Warriors is everything that isn't the Steph and Giannis fit. Because what does the rest of the floor look like? Who's even on the court at this point? And, like, how does it work defensively? Because I was thinking about Giannis. Like, okay, say you're spamming Giannis and Steph inverted pick and roll, right? Doing, like, the two-man stuff. Where the heck is Draymond? And what's he doing?
Dunker? Or, like, off-ball screener for, like, a Pods or Moses Moody?
Yeah, I could see that. And then it's like, that's what makes it tough for me. Because ideally, you probably want Quentin Post on the court in a Giannis lineup, right? Like, there's your drop big, your extra rebounding presence, your stretch five. But you can't have Giannis, Draymond, and Post. That's really awkward, and then you're, like, really slow. And then it's like if you go Giannis and Draymond as your 4-5, you really are giving up still a lot of size, even though both can play big.
Yeah.
And then also you're giving up a lot of spacing because Draymond really isn't, and he has been getting back to like a competent shooting level to some extent this year, but still not like a spacer. So I do think it's kind of like teams in the playoffs would be like Draymond beat us, or Pods beat us, or Moses Moody beat us. And I don't know if they'd be an elite enough defense to look at that and be like, yeah, they can beat you on offense. Like Steph and Giannis would be a perfect basketball fit. But we've seen time and time again that it takes 5 players to compete for a championship. And that's the aspect of it that I'm not 100% sold on. I could be overthinking it. It could be as simple as Giannis, Steph, inverted pick and roll. Let's get as much defense on the court as we can. and we'll be fine. Like, it could be that simple.
This is another team that I would probably prefer. They feel like more of the offseason fit. Simply because, like, I would want to see them get this done in the offseason and build the whole team out.
Okay, I totally forgot they have Al Horford, too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I just forgot Al Horford exists. Like, obviously, he hasn't looked like his prime self. Far from it, but he's still Al Horford. Like, he probably still has a playoff gear. Yeah, I see what you're saying, though. Like, you definitely need some retooling of the roster. Because, like, what would a lineup look like? What if, okay, hear me out, right? What if you go Draymond in the corner? Like, Draymond, weak side corner. We've seen the Warriors do that quite a bit. They'll just go away from Draymond, put him in the corner, and it's like, Draymond, we trust you to take 7 or 8 threes, or we trust you to do, like, a quick dribble handoff type thing. You go to this defensive lineup of, we're going to spam Giannis and Steph two-man game.
Okay.
We're going to put GP2 in the dunker, and we're going to have Moody as our other spacer. And it's like, now you've just got this elite defensive lineup. You can spam Giannis and Steph two-man stuff, and it's like, Giannis and Steph, we think you have enough offensive talent to get us to the promised land. I think that ceiling is probably higher than what you get from the Knicks.
Only problem is, though, you have 30... That's not fair. I'm not going to go there. Never mind.
What were you going to say?
I was about to call the Warriors the old-ass Warriors because you have 37-year-old Steph, 32-year-old Giannis, 31-year-old, I apologize. Draymond, 35? Al Horford is, literally about to be in the retirement home next year. That'll be my... That's why I still probably lean ceiling New York. Also because I feel like New York ceiling would be more attainable, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Okay, I've got one more team for you regarding ceiling. And this one I actually think is the highest ceiling. And it's the Spurs.
De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, Giannis. Doesn't matter what else we have.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, Wemby and Giannis is a dream pairing in the way that Giannis and Steph is, but for completely different reasons. Like, first of all, the defense, I don't even think we have to explain. The defense would be absolutely ridiculous. The length and ground covers would be unlike anything we've ever seen. Would be one of the best defensive duos of all time. But the offense, like, there's so many different ways you can use both of them in different floor spacing concepts because Wemby's a volume 3-point threat. And because him and Giannis are so physically overwhelming from a size standpoint, like, you could literally just put both on the block and, like, just beat up teams in the paint for 48 minutes. Like, I promise that would probably work. Stephon Castle fit still makes sense because I don't think they'd want to trade Castle. You'd maybe have to trade Dylan Harper, which, like, I wouldn't want to trade Dylan Harper from the Spurs, and I'd try and keep him if I can. But, like, if you're trading him for Giannis, the Spurs with Giannis would immediately be a tier 1 contender. Like, they would maybe be the best team in basketball if they were able to keep most of their depth pieces, because they do have a lot of two-way depth. They've got tons of shooters. They've got competent wings. They've got rim pressure. They've got everything. And so, yeah, Giannis and Wemby being basically a dream pairing as a duo, along with De'Aaron Fox as, like, your primary half-court creator down the stretch of games and stuff. Yeah, I think that would be the highest ceiling team. Maybe also the highest floor. Like, is there any way that could go wrong besides injury?
No, I feel like it would be more so long term. Like, okay, maybe you have to trade Dylan Harper, and now we're bummed. But
yeah, that's what I think. Okay. Now I'm just gonna give you two more teams I've written down. I feel great about these fits. But I don't think either would be just like immediate contenders. So that's like where the hang up is, where it's like you have to do other moves on the margins. You've got the Pacers, specifically when Halliburton gets back. We've been talking about the Pacers and Giannis fit for I feel like a couple of years now. At least I know I have. Like, that's been my dream fit. The only possible hang up is like the Giannis and Siakam thing could be a tiny bit clunky, and then it's like,
you don't think they would trade Siakam?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get rid of Siakam though. But it's like Giannis would have to play the 5 a lot, it feels like. And I don't know if that's ideal. I like that more as like a chess move, not a go-to, right? Giannis at the 5. What would be your thoughts on Giannis to the Pacers with Halliburton and Siakam. Like, let's assume their starting five is Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Giannis.
I think that Siakam and Giannis. Well, okay, in Siakam's defense, Siakam does have a little more offensive versatility. Like, he does like to operate from the mid post and things like that, and from the middle of the floor. But like, we've seen him as a floor spacer. You could do some stuff with him and Giannis, even I think in like lineups without Halliburton on the floor. Yeah. I think the pitch is like, dude, Halliburton is just the ultimate floor like table setter, and he's gonna get off the ball so quick and make so many quick decisions that can honestly really benefit Giannis, especially in the open floor or in semi-transition early offense and stuff like that.
They'd be the best transition team in basketball by a landslide.
They'd be arguably the best transition offense ever.
Yeah. They'd be absurd.
Halliburton's decision-making, and then Giannis's freight train downhill ability. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
They are definitely missing a 5, which is concerning, at least long term. But also,
like, the way I think about it is, like, is there anything Turner did at the 5 that Giannis couldn't? Like, you're not losing a drop defender, rebounder. Like, Giannis is a way better drop defender and rebounder than Turner.
Yeah.
So it's like, could it just be Giannis as a full-time? The only difference would be, obviously, you lose the pick and pop stuff.
Wait, I'm not bugging. They have J Huff.
They do have J Huff, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, hey, we have J Huff for the pick and pop stuff. Shrug. Shrug emoji. My biggest thing really is, like, what's the package? I mean, I guess that's the thing for all these teams, but...
It'd probably be built around Benedict Mathurin, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, like, what after that? Like, I don't know what their pick situation is like. And then it's like, I don't want to trade Obi Toppin. I mean, obviously, Obi Toppin isn't the hang-up for a Giannis trade. But, like, I'd like to keep Obi Toppin if I'm Indiana. And then they don't really have a ton of young... Like, Jarris Walker, I don't think is a big asset.
No.
Johnny Furphy could be an interesting asset, I think.
I think he's intriguing at the very least.
Yeah, he's intriguing. But then also, it's like, you're not going to trade 36-year-old TJ McConnell. Like, that's...
Right.
That's not. Unless you're trying to match... Yeah, and then also, how do you match the salaries?
That's what I think would have to be Siakam.
That's the other... It maybe would have to be. And obviously, like, if it's Siakam for Giannis, you still do that. It just kind of sucks. Like, I think Siakam is such a great pacer. Like, I just love him with that team. Such a perfect basketball fit. Okay, I've got one more team for you before we get to my heavy hitter. This is an interesting one. I love this fit, but, like, not a contender at all, but my goodness, would it be good basketball. We just talked a lot about them last episode. The Charlotte Hornets. If you could keep your young core, like if your starting lineup could be LaMelo, Concanipple, Brandon Miller, Giannis, and Moussa Diabate, what a basketball squad that is. Because of everything we talked about last episode, the ball movement, the offensive creativity, the way they space the floor. You've got 3 of the highest volume 3-point shooters on the planet. Like,
and then Giannis.
LaMelo shooting 13 threes a game, Con shooting 11 threes a game, Miller shooting 10 threes a game. And then the only thing they're missing is that big half-court presence as a creator in the middle of the floor. Literally, the only thing they're missing from being the best offense in the league is Giannis. Is basically what I'm getting at. But then it's like, what would the defense be deep in the playoffs if you're relying on LaMelo, Knipple, and Brandon Miller?
As your point of attack defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giannis and Diabate would be fun, though.
Hey, their plan would be to score 140 points a night.
And it would work. It would work. But then you can go to, like, Sion James. Sion James is an interesting young point of attack type of guy.
I like Sion James.
Yeah. I think that'd be a squad, man. That'd be awesome.
They'd be, like, the most fun 5th seed to lose in the second round ever.
Don't say that. It's disrespectful. They're already 5th seed material, man. What'd you just text me yesterday? Hornets won by 40? Okay. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. For me, this is the number 1 destination for Giannis. It makes so much sense. It's almost, like, scary. So earlier, I came up with a list of what the ideal roster construction around Giannis would be. And tell me if you disagree with any of these points. I think you need to have a surplus of shooters who can play off the catch. So one problem with Milwaukee is that they had a bunch of shooters. They were all one-dimensional. So, like, if you ran them off the line or forced them to catch the ball on the move, there wasn't much else to their game. It was pretty much like shoot or nothing. You got to have shooters who can play off the catch. You got to have a secondary creator, ideally like a third and fourth creator, as many as possible so you can unlock the off-ball value in Giannis's game as a screen setter and play finisher. You can't have a ball-dominant creator who's going to take touches away from Giannis. You can't have a middle-of-the-floor operator who's going to occupy the same space as Giannis. And ideally, some level of defensive structure so that he doesn't have to do everything on that end of the floor. What team does that sound like?
The Oklahoma City Thunder? No, they don't even meet all those.
It's the Phoenix Suns, man. It is the Phoenix Suns. It is, you have athletic bigs. Specifically, like the Giannis and Mark Williams fit to me is super intriguing because of what I talked about with Williams playing from the dunker and getting on the offensive glass and his play finishing. But also the defensive fit. You've got an elite, maybe the best possible secondary creator in Devin Booker, who can play off the ball, play on the move, and activate Giannis's off-ball game. But also you've got tertiary shot creation from Colin Gillespie and Dylan Brooks. So it's like you just got a bunch of people who can put the ball on the floor and make decisions, and they're all high-level shooters. You've got shooting across the board. You've got depth. You've got defensive versatility. You've got a team that does all of the little things. They win the possession battle. They win on the margins, right? Without like super high-level talent. And then he'd be able to step right into a role that enables him to do exactly what he does best. And I ran it through the trade machine, and people on Twitter are mad because I undersold the package. I literally said in the tweet, this isn't the package. It's just like a rough framework of what it would look like. The Suns can make the contracts work for Giannis with just Jalen Green and Grayson Allen. That's the salary match.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary. So if you can just get rid of Jalen Green and Grayson Allen and keep your entire core intact, your playoff rotation becomes starting five. Gillespie, Booker, Brooks, Giannis, Mark Williams. Off the bench, you've got Royce O'Neal, you've got Ryan Dunn, you've got Jordan Goodwin, and you've got Oso Ighodaro. Check ball. That's a squad. That is an absolute squad. Let me ask you, do you think that would be a tier 1 contender? Because they're already playing at like a 50-something win pace. Do you think that team would be enough to compete for a championship?
Yeah, I think the only teams in the West, I think they would at least be damn close to like Denver, OKC. Like, I think they would be no worse than the either third or fourth best team in the West. Like the only two teams.
That's how I feel about it. And I even like throw them in the tier with Denver and OKC. Not that I would like have them as the number 1 team in the league, but I do think they're in that group.
Yeah, I mean, even imagine closing out games. And again, I think another thing about Book is his offensive versatility as a screener, as an initiator, as an off-ball guy. Close out games. We have Dylan Brooks and Colin Gillespie spaced down the corners. And middle in the floor, we're going like flat inverted pick and roll. Giannis and Devin Booker, Book popping. Or if you're worried about the pop and trying to beat Giannis to the spot downhill, Book short rolls, and it's Mark Williams lob. Or vice versa. Flat pick and roll, Devin Book pops. Okay, well, we're worried about Devin Booker, who's obviously an elite shooter. There's just the offensive configuration that they can kind of like come up with. It would be elite. And then you just have so many guys, like you said, on the roster that can make decisions off the catch. Dylan Brooks is having an awesome season. Gillespie is, I mean, the perfect like secondary ball handler, decision maker, I think that I think almost any team would want to have. Phoenix, like I said, Phoenix in the West is easily the fit that I'm like, yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, and it's like, think about how many different lineups you could go to, too, right? Like, let's say you want to, I do think they really like the Booker and Oso Ighodaro stuff because of Iguodaro's like playmaking from the 5 and his ability to be a connector and hub for the offense and Booker's off-ball ability. But like, think about all of the defensive staggers you could go to. Like, imagine a lineup of Gillespie at the 1, right? That's kind of your offensive punch. And then you got Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, Giannis at the 5. Like, imagine that lineup for extended minutes in the playoffs. Or then you can go like jumbo lineup where you put Ryan Dunn at the 3 Giannis, Mark Williams, and whatever configuration you want. Like, basically what I'm getting at is that Giannis would be a good fit with the Suns. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but I do think the Suns have some interesting assets. They've got the money to make it work without sacrificing their core. And just like from everything we've talked about with Giannis's basketball fit, I just think that would make so much sense for both sides. And it'd be like the time to pull the trigger on some of the assets you've cooped from like trading Kevin Durant, trading Nurkic, and getting a first-round pick back and all that good stuff. Are there any other teams on your mind or that like you've seen thrown out there that you kind of want to just bring up real quick?
Obviously, again, if I didn't make it clear at the start, F no to the Lakers. Please no. Don't do that.
Same with the Pistons. Like, if the Pistons were another team that could trade for Giannis, I just don't think the fit would make sense at all.
Yeah. I'm looking through here. No, I mean, lol. Wait, I didn't notice this. Can you, really quick, I was looking at the standings, so I was looking at the teams that could potentially pull it off. Can you, really quickly, just guess what the Chicago Bulls record is right now?
It's 23-23. I know. I saw it earlier.
All is right with the world. The most mid team in basketball.
You know what's fun? I did think about the Bulls. The Bulls, like, from a basketball fit standpoint, would make sense, but then you have to make, like, 8 more moves to become a contender, which the Bulls wouldn't make. So I hope they don't do it.
Yeah, no. For Giannis' sake, please don't do it.
Yeah, I agree. Any other teams?
No, not really. I mean, again, you have your teams like the Wizards that, I mean, sure, but again, they're just so far away from contention.
I've seen 2 teams thrown out there a lot that I'm not a fan of either of them. One of them is Portland. I just don't think there's enough shooting on the team at all to make that work. And then also, Denny and Giannis, a lot of diminishing returns there. Like, I don't really think that fit makes too much sense. The other one I keep seeing a lot, which I don't get at all, is the Mavericks. I don't know why that would make any sense at all. That seems like a terrible fit to me.
Yeah.
But those are the other 2 I've seen. I don't think there's any other teams we're missing, unless it's like you said, like one of those rebuilding teams, like the Wizards or the Nets or the Pelicans. Like, sure, they could do something, but I don't really think that would make much sense. Is there anything else I'm going to bring up with the Giannis situation?
Folks, end the relationship while I was at a high note. Wait, no, that's not. No, wait. Yeah. It's time. Just end the relationship. We're done with the relationship analogies.
Analogy back one more time. We appreciate you guys listening. I'm actually going to end the show correctly this time. If you're on Spotify, please give us a follow so you can stay up to date on all of our new episodes. 5-star rating, very much appreciated, but of course not necessary. Make sure to follow us on social media. Sean's on Twitter at Sean_DAVI. He's on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. He's on YouTube at The Sports Headline Show and the Los Angeles Lakers Network. I'm on all platforms at Tyler Britton _ for more of my basketball content. Hoop Venue on all platforms, of course. We really appreciate you guys listening, and we will catch you guys next time, actually, with our All-Star teams in episode number 73.